How's it going, everybody? RazingHel here, and today I'm going to be showcasing why I think Wickerbottom is especially powerful here in Don't Starve Together Hamlet, the new DLC for Don't Starve single player. It centers around the book Applied Horticulture that Wickerbottom has exclusive access to. Crafting this book allows you to instantly grow a variety of plants. Most plants are affected by this book, including things such as trees, and it also is true of nettles, being this effect is applied to the nettle plants in Don't Starve Hamlet as well. You might be wondering why this is important. Well, right here you can see I've got some nettle leaves in my inventory. Now these are a type of food. You can eat them like that. They provide both 10 hunger and 10 health raw like this, and they never spoil. So having a good supply of nettle leaves is advisable. There is really no downside to doing it, and Wickerbottom can farm up a storm. In addition to the aforementioned positive benefits of nettle leaves, they're also especially critical in making foods such as Nettle Rolls, which come in very handy during the lush season when your character will normally be sneezing. Since the nettles and the nettle rolls act as a source of antihistamines, it means that your character will not be affected by the hay fever of the lush season for a set period of time. I don't remember the exact amount of time that it's applicable, but after eating the nettle rolls during that time afterwards, your character is immune from the effects of hay fever. So now you might have noticed that I have a little bit of a garden that I set up here. This is largely for show. It's meant to impress. This is not how I would generally recommend doing this. What I'm going to be showing you over here are the more practical gardens that I'm going to use. So this one is an idea, sort of a concept that I had. I thought, well, you know, what happened if you existed in a world that did not have ready water access to the jungle, the deep tropical jungle biome. It's this one with the red turf in it, right? It's got all the vines in it and whatnot. And what is really unique is that not every map that you generate is going to have a jungle biome like this connected to a source of water, the lily pond right there. So I thought, well, this might be a way to correct such unfortunate coincidences when you're playing. So here, this is a great example. It's currently in the humid season, so we've got a little bit of humidity going on here. The nettle vines, as you can see, perk up when they get a bit of rain. I don't have a lot of rain right now. I can go ahead and change that with the season manager, though. I'll get some rain in here, and then I'll show you how powerful this can be. Okay, excellent. It has started raining now, and what you'll want to wait for in this case is for the nettle vines to become wet, because if I use the book right now, even though they're planted on the correct turf, it will not grow them. Okay, here we go. Excellent. The nettle vines are wet. If you examine them, it says wet there. We're going to read the Applied Horticulture book, and as you'll see here, that is beautiful. That is a beautiful thing. However, the downside to this is that these nettles are going to dry up as soon as it stops raining, and they dry off. So right now they're wet nettle vines, and as long as they remain wet nettle vines, we'll be able to harvest them here. However, this does not last forever, and at a certain point after the rain stops, and it will stop rather shortly, if we do not have all of these nettles picked and they manage to dry off, which again I think takes about 30 to 60 seconds after the rain stops, not 100% certain on that. If we allow it to go for that long, though, the nettles will shrivel up and return to their former state. So even with Wickerbottom, it's very hard to grow nettles without a sprinkler, which is why I thought this was a useful little concept that I had here, but I would not recommend it as an alternative to a farm that you could set up with a sprinkler. The sprinkler is just going to be much more reliable, and it's not going to require you to be growing these nettles during a particular season. In my case, it's the humid season. I think it is the most practical season to try this type of sprinkler-less farm because of the prevalence of rain during this season, but you might find other options, other times to attempt this as well. And obviously, during the middle to the late part of the humid season is the best opportunity you have to grow a farm this big. Most people are not going to have a farm this big. That kind of goes without saying. This is stuff that I spawned in. Okay, so this is a good example. Here, it stopped raining. I'll show you what happens when these leaves dry off. You'll see they sort of shrivel up. Now this is like common knowledge about the nettles and how they work, but for those who might be uninitiated or who have never tried growing nettles themselves, I think this is a useful example. Okay, now as you can see, the nettles are drying and they all disappeared, the growths. So you have to harvest them immediately. That was the point that was kind of making there. And in addition to that, be very careful that you actually plant or place a lightning rod down during or around your farm here, because lightning will strike during the humid season somewhat unprovoked. You might not be expecting it, and it can set your entire farm up in flames. So with that demonstration out of the way, let's move over to what I think is the more practical application of Wickerbottom's books here. Applied horticulture in particular, obviously, when used with a more traditional type of nettle farm. All right, here on the banks of this lily pond, as you can see, I have 2 sprinklers set up. Each of them has their own little garden full of nettle vines to sort of hydrate. And the beauty of this is that I can produce an entire harvest of nettles at any season at the snap of a fingers, right? On a whim, because of the applied horticulture book. So once again, the applied horticulture is kind of picky about how it works. If I read it right now, you'll notice nothing happens, right? Because the nettles aren't in a state that allows them to grow. But I'm going to go ahead here and turn on both of these sprinklers. Here's the other one. Now I have to wait until the nettles themselves become wet. Right now it says that it's just a regular dry nettle vine. They're not budded up, but until they actually say that they're wet, you will not be able to grow them using Wickerbottom's books. And it applies whether or not you're using sprinklers. So these over here are wet. These over here are wet now. Okay, excellent. So now we have an opportunity to read the applied horticulture book. I'm going to stand here in between the two of these little farms here. And as you can see, fully grew a crop. Now, these crops are not as impressive visually as the standalone one. Like, this was almost perfect. There was a little small area in there that I wasn't quite able to plant anything for some unknown reason. The placement was blocked. Not exactly sure why. And then, of course, here you can see the sprinkler range. Some of these nettle vines are outside of that range, which means that they will not grow, obviously. And I kind of planted some extras here just so you could see where that range sort of is around the sprinklers. So you don't want to sort of exceed that. But obviously, this is a pretty decent haul of nettles from one reading of an applied horticulture book. Now, when harvesting the nettles themselves, you're probably going to want to wear something that isolates you from water, because otherwise you'll be taking on a good deal of water while harvesting like this. And like I said before, since the sprinklers are running while I'm doing this, there's no chance that these nettles are going to dry back up before I finish harvesting them here. So there you have it. That's what I've been doing recently with Wickerbottom here. I think this makes a pretty strong case for why Wickerbottom is especially powerful here while playing Don't Starve Hamlet compared to a lot of other characters that are available. You pretty much have unlimited access to nettles anytime, anywhere, with virtually no inconvenience on the part of the player. Reading the applied horticulture book once every now and then to grow an impressive crop like this is there's just no downsides to it, really. But yeah, be careful. Once again, you can see I have lightning rods here. So important. I want to stress how important lightning rods are. I've got a couple of them here because lightning strikes. It happens so much, and I've lost crops to lightning striking and burning the entire farm down. So don't do that. Don't make the mistakes I did. Always remember those lightning rods. They're so important in Hamlet, given the prevalence of storms, especially during the humid season. Once again, this has been a showcase of how you can use Wickerbottom to insta-grow nettles in the early access version of Don't Starve Hamlet. Thank you very much for watching as always, and I hope to see you next time.